Hi, my name is Pete Pearson, and thank you for joining me on this Bright Spot presentation for the NAAEE conference. Go ahead and get started. I am the Senior Director of our Food Loss and Waste program at World Wildlife Fund and have been with WWF for about 5 years. For those that might not be familiar with our organization, we are a global science-based organization dedicated to see that we increase biodiversity globally. We work with companies and communities all over the world, and we strive to meet the needs of both people and nature. The global office network that we have is about 80 to 100 different offices globally, and we focus in 6 primary areas. Some of them you can probably guess. It's forests, oceans, wildlife, climate change, and fresh water. But what most people don't know is that we work really extensively on food systems, and I'm part of the food program at World Wildlife Fund. We have 3 main goals. They are to see sustainable food production, to eliminate waste, and to see sustainable consumption patterns. Now, we have some pretty bad trends on the planet right now. We see overall about a 60% decline in mammal, bird, amphibians, in biodiversity loss globally. When we look at the causes for that biodiversity loss, it's estimated that about 70% of the biodiversity loss on the planet is attributed to food production. And so we really want to do something about this. The impacts of food are tremendous. We see that it makes up close to a quarter of all the greenhouse gas emissions globally. The vast majority of chemical use, 70% or more of fresh water withdrawals. And so addressing the food system is really a top priority. This idea of freezing the footprint of food is a top priority for WWF. Now, when we look also at achieving sustainable development goals, the SDGs globally, food plays a huge factor as well. Because one, we have to try to raise people out of poverty and try to feed hungry people globally. But we have to do that while also in a balance with life on land and life in the oceans and in water. And the way that we can do that, one of the ways, is through Sustainable Development Goal 12, which is to reduce our waste and to have more sustainable consumption patterns. In the United States, food waste represents about 63 million tons every single year. 63 million tons. And when we look at that, said a different way, if we produced all of that 63 million tons on a single farm, it would be roughly 3/4 the size of California. We would produce 40 tons of food waste every 20 seconds. And about 3/4 of that, or 75% or so, would go into landfills every year. Now, this represents a huge opportunity, not only to change how we dispose of food waste, but to see that we actually move to prevent as much food waste as possible. What we are trying to do as World Wildlife Fund is really 3 things. One is to prevent as much food waste as possible. The second is to see that any food waste that is edible can be donated and donated to those in need. And the third one is diverting it away from landfill. Now, we created about 3 or 4 years ago a program called our Food Waste Warrior Program for schools. And one of the primary tenets for this is to get students and to get schools auditing their cafeterias. Really simply, what we measure becomes what we value. And so what we're trying to do is to see that schools are actively participating in food waste reduction programs and that they are taking measured action to actually audit their cafeterias and to build this into the curriculum. Now, I jokingly like to say that what we are trying to do is similar to a Weight Watchers program. Right? We're trying to have schools take measurements every single week or maybe a couple times a month to understand how much waste they are generating, and what you measure over time you can actually reduce. You can see a reduction of that waste by just measuring how much you waste every week. The primary resources we have for this program, one, we created several things. We actually have created a lesson plan for teachers and schools to be able to use. The lesson plan includes all kinds of good resources for one, talking to your administrators, your faculty, and also getting people within the school, like your janitorial staff and your kitchen staff, involved in the program. This takes sometimes a lot of work, but we've stepped this out and we've actually created a curriculum that helps you do that. The second thing the curriculum does is it helps to create this connection back to biodiversity and back to conservation. And we feel this is really critical because it's often not a connection that most students and even adults make, right? This connection between food and the planet and biodiversity loss. And so the hope is by looking at food waste reduction and by having this be a curriculum element that students learn about, the light bulb will go off and they'll create some lasting impressions and maybe look at the cafeteria a lot differently in an ongoing analysis. We've partnered with the USDA and the EPA, who have published what they call a guide to conducting student food waste audits. And so we've tried to mimic as much of that as possible and go off of the guidance that the USDA and the EPA are creating. And then we also did our own study. So from 2018, we actually went out with almost 45 schools all across the country, and we performed hundreds of audits where we looked at what was the best thing to be doing for each school, how to get your students involved in it, and we also published the results of those audits, and we saw that there were huge opportunities to reduce food waste. And not only food waste, but also milk loss, and just a lot of really good general best practices for how to run a cafeteria more efficiently and effectively. So that was published as part of our Food Waste Warriors report. You'll be able to see all of these materials online. You'll be able to see our portal where we have all of our teaching resources and where all of this is made available. Starting in the late fall 2020, we're excited to be publishing a whole new series of teaching materials, curriculum materials, and they're based on different grade bands. So you'll see one grade band that's kindergarten through third grade, another grade band that's third grade through fifth grade, another for like middle school, and then another for high school. So what's really great is that not only do we provide the basics for doing food waste audits in cafeterias and this curriculum development, but now you have many different examples and materials you can use straight from our website for free to be able to develop and to really put this curriculum in motion in your classroom. The final thing that I'd like to touch on as part of this Bright Spot is the fact that we've also set up a really great data portal. If you are going to be participating in the Food Waste Warrior program, we would love to help you collect and aggregate the data coming from your school. So if you do a food waste audit, this is a great opportunity for you to enter data into the system online for free. We keep all of the data confidential and nothing would be shared individually from an individual school or a district, so you can rest assured that the data itself will remain confidential. But this is a great way to help us bring and aggregate data from all across the country and really make sure that we can see what's happening in terms of long-term trends. So we're really excited about this. This again is available from our Food Waste Warrior website, and we'd love to see you participate. So with that, thank you so much for letting me speak. And please let us know, reach out to us if you have any questions or want to get involved. Thank you.